Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NewsBrowse News broadcast. An Ottawa youth has been found guilty of terrorism charges stemming from an alleged plan to attack Jewish people, the Canadian Press reports. The verdict was delivered by an Ontario Superior Court judge on Wednesday, April 22, just hours before a scheduled trial was set to begin for the young person and a co-accused. The youth, who cannot be identified due to legal age restrictions, pleaded not guilty to 4 charges. However, they admitted to a statement of facts and invited the court to find them guilty. This unusual legal maneuver was undertaken to preserve the youth's right to appeal the pretrial exclusion of certain evidence, as well as the guilty findings. The charges include conspiracy to commit murder through involvement with a terrorist group and facilitating terrorist activity by possessing explosive substances such as acetone, an oxidizer, and metal ball bearings. Global News reports that the Supreme Court of Canada has rejected an appeal from the Quebec government aimed at blocking a redrawing of the provincial electoral map. In a 7-2 decision, the court ruled against Quebec's attempt, meaning that one riding on the Gaspé Peninsula and another in Montreal's East End will be eliminated. These will be replaced by 2 new districts in the rapidly growing Laurentians-Nord-Naudière and Centre-du-Québec regions. Premier François Legault's government had introduced a law in 2024 to prevent the redrawing, citing concerns from all parties that the new map would diminish political representation for Gaspé and create overly large ridings in eastern Quebec. However, the Supreme Court upheld the Quebec Court of Appeal's previous ruling, which found the provincial law unconstitutional and a violation of the Charter of Rights, which guarantees democratic representation. Quebec Premier Christine Fréchette stated that the province's democratic institutions minister plans to table a new bill in partnership with opposition parties to protect the ridings slated for elimination. According to the Canadian Press, Prime Minister Mark Carney declared Wednesday that Canada will not offer further concessions to the United States as negotiations for the Continental Trade Pact, CUSMA, approach their mandatory review. Carney emphasized that Washington would not be permitted to dictate the terms of these discussions, despite a Radio Canada report suggesting U.S. demands for an entry fee and concessions. While Mexico and the U.S. have commenced formal talks, Canada and the U.S. have yet to do so. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer highlighted differing trade priorities and pointed to Canadian practices, such as provincial alcohol sales policies and high dairy tariffs, as key irritants. Greer even hinted at potential enforcement action if American alcohol is not returned to Canadian shelves, placing Canada in the same company as China for economic retaliation. Carney reiterated Canada's commitment to protecting its supply management system for dairy, poultry, and eggs. Air Transat will cut around 1,000 flights between May and October, resulting in a 6% capacity reduction, as reported by the Canadian Press. This decision is a direct consequence of soaring jet fuel prices, which have been triggered by energy disruptions stemming from the war in the Middle East. The airline plans to decrease flight frequencies on certain routes to Europe and the Caribbean, extend its suspension of service to Cuba, postpone a new route from Toronto to Accra, Ghana, and shorten its Montreal to Guadalajara, Mexico service. CEO Annick Guérard noted that while demand remains strong, the recent volatility in aviation fuel prices is an exceptional challenge affecting the entire sector. This move mirrors similar actions taken by other Canadian carriers like Air Canada and WestJet, as well as international airlines such as Lufthansa, all grappling with high fuel costs and the need to adjust schedules and fleet efficiency. Jet fuel prices from the U.S. Gulf Coast are currently about double pre-war levels, and the company expects the complex procurement cycle to take a long time to normalize. Federal officials in Canada have significantly ramped up their monitoring of threats posed by Tehran against members of the Iranian diaspora residing in Canada. A senior public safety executive announced Tuesday at a conference in Ottawa. Sébastien Aubertin-Giguère, National Counter-Foreign Interference Coordinator and an Associate Assistant Deputy Minister at Public Safety Canada, emphasized, "We're keeping a very close eye on their actions." He noted Iran's history of retaliating and engaging in lethal activities when its diaspora becomes active or challenges the regime. Speaking at the Ottawa Civic Space Summit, Aubertin-Giguère explained that advancements in technology and escalating geopolitical competition have made it easier for authoritarian states to harass and silence dissenters beyond their borders, with Canada increasingly becoming a battleground for these political struggles. He highlighted the collaborative efforts of Global Affairs Canada, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, and the Canada Border Services Agency to detect and address these threats. Despite receiving approximately 280 tips about Iranian officials with links to Tehran, the Canada Border Services Agency has faced criticism for deporting only one such individual, underscoring the legal complexities involved. Furthermore, Aubertin-Giguère pointed to the challenge of addressing gray zone activities, such as openly photographing homes, which can be acts of intimidation but are not explicitly illegal. Noura Al-Gizawi, a researcher, urged democracies to enhance their outreach to diaspora groups, particularly concerning the use of spyware and online surveillance by various regimes. This report comes from City News Everywhere. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.